Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Jonathan Bennett with us. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Atul. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, awesome. So, for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm an executive advisor. I work with CEOs and founders across mainly North America, supporting them when things get really difficult in their businesses or when they've got big opportunities that they want to go after. So I do a lot of listening. It feels a bit like work therapy, but also I help with really strong and difficult business decisions as well.
Okay, so you have worked with many organizations. So, what made you switch and start helping leaders one on one?
Yeah, so I came up through like healthcare and I founded a management consulting company. And so, in a way, I've been helping CEOs and other founders for a very long time, really my whole career in one way or another. And I think I just sort of am somebody that likes to spend a lot of time listening and asking more and ever difficult questions of folks until we get to the root of a problem. And that's how I can support people by giving them opportunities to have insights and personal growth and really tackle the things that they've struggled to face head on.
Okay, so what's the biggest problem you faced as a leader and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a toughie. Look, I suppose to tell you a story, most businesses go through cycles of change, right? Things are growing and things are improving and maybe scaling. For me, that was true when I founded a management consulting company. We were growing and just going like gangbusters. We hit a phase in our growth that we'd probably grown too fast, too quickly, new to it. And I was also on the inside of it, right? It's hard to sometimes recognize where you're at when you're on the inside yourself. So I didn't see some of the signs and we hit some headwinds. There was an election in the air. Many of our clients just stopped spending and suddenly we were overstaffed with not enough work. And I think, that was one of the most difficult times in my career was having to lay off some staff that I really appreciated, who were good people, who were working genuinely hard to do good work. But we just didn't have the revenue to support that size of company anymore. And so that was an emotionally really difficult, complex thing for me to go through. Look, I think kind of looking back on it now, there's a lot of lessons there. And they're the kinds of lessons that I like to help my clients with, which is, you can't put off things if you start to really, sense that maybe not everything is right, that there's an obligation for you as a leader to step up and to really make the tough calls as soon as you can, because things, when they start to head in the wrong direction, they only pick up speed. And so to bend a curve gently is, always the best way to go.
Okay. Okay, so when you help leaders, what sign shows someone is stuck and what shows that they are doing well?
Yeah, well, when somebody's stuck, you sense that they're maybe spinning. They've got an internal story that they're telling themselves that maybe used to be true. Maybe it was something that for them in the past, it was the kind of thing that worked, right? Earlier in their career. And then now that they're a leader and they've got people that report to them or they've got far more complex sets of circumstances, those things that they used to do aren't working anymore and they don't know why. So, they'll often just turn up the volume. They just try to do the same thing except harder and faster and louder. And it just doesn't work even bigger. Helping them kind of reframe and learn about that maybe when they were an individual contributor, they could push through and work hard and expect that of themselves. But now they've got a team, let's say, those same tactics just can't work. They'll end up micromanaging people or they'll end up burning people out. And so helping them kind of reframe is a pretty important part of my work, is helping them think about like how might I come at this problem differently? How am I showing up? And
Mhm.
how might I do new and different things to support the folks around me and support the business? The second part of your question was about opportunities. And, I think seeking new opportunities, especially in business, is about risk. It's about accepting risk and taking risk. And I think really great leaders are people that are always analyzing risk and reward. And maybe they've got an outsize, like, some of the most famous entrepreneurs have been really large risk takers. They'll take a big bet and they'll go hard on something. For most of us, when we own companies, when we're leading organizations, we have to be careful. We have a duty of care to the folks around us, to our customers, to our suppliers, to the community that we exist in. And so it can't be when all chips in the center are bet on every single thing. We need to be cautious and find the right kind of balance between risk and reward. So a lot of people find that really tough, eh? Like it's a hard thing to kind of get right. And your instinct, especially if you're an aggressive leader that you seek out, aggressive may be the wrong word, but like if you seek out opportunities and you get a real charge from taking risks to tampen that somewhat with the knowledge that companies can grow too quickly. You can make the wrong bet and lose everything, or at least suffer the consequences of moving in a big way. So those things need to be kept in check and kept in balance. I think good research, really understanding your customers, listening carefully to your staff, they're all things that can help you know which are the right risks to take and which ones to avoid.
Okay. But I'm curious about one thing. Like right now, my company don't have any kind of culture. Okay, we just do the work, have fun. That's it. So, at what time should I start working on culture?
Yeah, I mean, you probably do have some culture. It just maybe is not described in a formal kind of way. Like as humans, whenever we're together in any kind of team environment, that team has
Hmm.
a kind of, vibe. And a way of thinking about that is to describe that as the workplace culture of the team. Even if it's remote or even if people are in and out of your business, maybe you've got subcontractors and other things like that. Like the way people connect with you and those relational elements is really what we might describe as workplace culture. I think sort of that organic beginnings is something that happens quite naturally. The next stage up the maturity ladder is to describe and define what your culture means to each of you. And so going through some kind of process to start to formalize your values, your organizational design, that starts to kind of create culture in an intentional way. And I think it is helpful for people because as you bring new people on and as you grow,
Hmm.
you can say to those new folks, look, here's what our expectations are of ourselves and of one another. And here's the way we'd like you to behave. And it becomes a kind of recipe for them to understand how to fit in, how to
Hmm.
contribute, where the boundaries are, what's acceptable here and what's not. And that can be really, really helpful because you can articulate that. It helps people choose whether or not I should want to work with you or not, because that matches my values and what I want. Or
Yeah.
like, gee, that sounds like that's too hustle for me, or that's too wishy-washy for me, or that's too lovey-dovey for me. Like everybody's personality types can kind of connect in when you've
Hmm.
gone through the effort of describing and writing down kind of what the culture is and how people are expected to behave and uphold that culture.
Okay, got it. So, can you share a story, like, you need to name it, about someone you have helped to become a better leader?
Sure. I mean, I'm proud to say lots and lots. I've helped hundreds of people over the years. If I think about my current clients, and obviously I'll anonymize, the story. Uh, yeah, I've got somebody in mind that I'm seeing later in this week. So she's somebody who has gone through a really big leadership transition. She led a very high growth organization and she did amazing things in terms of being able to build it and grow it. And she did a lot of work on culture. It was rocky and it was difficult. The growth was very, very fast. And that was what was expected of her. That was the assignment. The board of directors rode her very, very hard. And ultimately, they made a change. And so she suddenly found herself without a job. And that caused for a lot of self reflection for her. What part of that journey did she like? What parts was she proud of? How does it reflect over the broader? It was only a few years. So, she's had a much longer career than that. And so it's sort of like untangling what just happened and rethreading it through the whole arc of her personal career narrative. And
Hmm.
so what I was able to do is, catch the fall and give her a place to kind of land. I was supporting her through when she was leading the organization, but then beyond it, was able to kind of catch that and support her and rebuild her confidence, get herself to a place of curiosity. What might I want to do next? Who am I going to be now? And what's this next phase? And how do I consolidate what I learned? And how do I now apply all of that to what I want to do next? And so at this point, we're going through a rebuilding of her career. I won't get into any details, but she's poised for the next thing, and that sort of dip and relaunch is not an uncommon one that I'll help executives with, because people smash into brick walls all the time when they're leaders, and CEOs can make a lot of money, but a lot of folks don't really think about this very much. Is they also get fired a lot. They lose their jobs a lot. The stakes are high and the rewards are high, but the risks are really high too. And so if you're going to find yourself, earning a lot of money, but then suddenly earning no money, or if your payout, has 6 months or a year or something, you've got to put yourself back on the market, and it can take quite a long time to find the next thing. And these are high stakes things. So that's one story, but it's fairly emblematic of the kind of work I often do.
Can you be more specific? Like, who are your ideal clients?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sector agnostic. I know that's not very fashionable. Everybody says niche, niche, niche. I actually help like leaders and founders and CEOs from many, many sectors. Mostly they're in mid-career or towards the end of their career. They are typically people that are the decision makers in their organizations or companies. I do a lot of work with boards of directors. Boards are a very particular group, and they have a fiduciary duty, and they are usually far more senior folks, and they have a different kind of role. So I spend a lot of time doing group work with boards as well. So they're sort of my two kind of ideal clients, is folks that are running organizations that are dealing with all the hard things, and then boards that are overseeing those organizations. Cause I sit on a number of boards myself.
By the way, I'm curious, like, at what time companies start a board? Because a couple of days ago, I had conversation with a guy, and he sold his company for 1.2 billion, and he said to make that happen, he had to get board member.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So there's really no exact right time to get a board of directors, but I can tell you what a typical growth cycle will be. My advice to most entrepreneurs that are starting companies is to start a board as soon as you can. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be complex, but getting a few more senior people that have done similar things to you in the past, or are able to fill in some gaps in your own skill set to support you on your journey, is really, really helpful. Now, you would call something like that usually an advisory board. And so often they'll meet you quarterly. They'll support, it can be as few as 3 people. And you would still treat them like a real board of directors. You would send them your financials. You would send them your plans. You would invite them into your planning processes to really extract that wisdom from them. Companies would pay a group of advisors like that around an advisory board, some sort of fee. And
Mhm.
the more complex and larger the organization gets, the fee tends to go up. As companies grow, they'll hit a point where, and it sounds like the person that you were speaking with, a fully built out company doing, $1 billion, is going to have a fiduciary board that has a lot of oversight and an accountability for the organization overall. They almost certainly have got some sort of stake in the company. So they would be shareholders, and they might be independent directors as well, but they would have some sort of financial stake in the company. And as they get closer to sale, one
Mhm.
of the reasons why a company that's that big almost certainly has a board of directors is because the level of oversight and structure and rigor that you need to run a company of that size needs to be overseen by a board of directors. That gives a potential purchaser a lot of comfort that this company is what it says it is. It has good
Mhm.
systems and processes. It has good governance. And so somebody deciding to, whether it was a private equity or whoever would be buying a company like that, is coming in, it's just one checkbox down the list of things that they're looking for to feel attracted to purchase a company like that it's going to be well run and that good people are involved at every level.
Okay, so you read a lot of books, right?
Yeah, read lots of books. Yeah.
So which one is your favorite? Okay, top three favorite books.
Top 3 favorite books. Okay. I I often recommend a really simple book to my clients if they haven't read it, which is called The Coaching Habit. It's by Michael Bungay Stenner. It's a very simple book. It's a quick read, but I find it's an excellent way into the mindset of being a good coach as a leader. So it's like, how do you take the principles of coaching but apply them to your leadership? I think that's an excellent book. Uh, oh, what else do I like? Mm, I'm looking over at my bookshelf to think about, what I really, really like. Yeah, so, the second one would be, Amy Edmondson's book on psychological safety. Psychological safety in the workplace is a big, topic right now. She's from Harvard. She's somebody that is a really deep thinker and a great writer about what we all now understand as psychological safety, and she sort of coined the phrase and unpacked it. Yeah, let me think. The last book, I think, look, The Psychology of Money is a great book for solopreneurs. It really sort of unpacks our individual relationships with money and
Mhm.
how that is formed very early on. We often get our own connection to money from our parents, and we'll end up replaying that out. So when you're in a relationship with a spouse, he or she is going to be doing that with her parents and you're doing it with your parents, and then you come together and how well do they blend? That's a lot of work inside a private personal relationship to unwind when it comes to money and how you feel about money. Some people like to save, some people like to spend, some people like to never think about it.
Mhm.
Some people think it grows on trees. Some people worry about it. And all of these things come from our childhoods and the way that our parents raised us and their relationships with money that were handed to them. So we bring that into business with us. So when we're in partnerships, we have the same connection with our colleagues, with founders and founding partners. They've also got an attachment, a long, long old story about money that they bring into business with them, and that's just an excellent book that starts to unpack that a little bit.
When we look for partners, okay, or maybe board members, I think we should also look for their belief in money, like how they
Yeah, their
believe
belief.
as.
Yeah, that's great. It's a funny thing to talk about,
Mhm.
and it can be a hard thing to bring up and unpack with somebody. Not many people have done the work, like the personal work of
Mhm.
uncovering their own beliefs about money. If you've done the work yourself, and if the other person has done the work themselves, it'll
Mhm.
probably come out quite naturally.
Mhm.
But I would encourage anybody that's considering going into business with another person to just have a very upfront conversation, like as frank as you can, about what your relationship with money is. Like just in a very neutral way. Like,
Mhm.
how often do you look at your bank account? Do you have financial plans? Do you like to budget? Do you like to see how you performed against that budget every month in your personal life and in your business? Because those behaviors that you have developed over the course of your life, they will carry on into the business relationship. So you can't understand that soon enough. It's one of the things that drives founders apart is that they just spend and they don't think about what's really going on. They're spending my money. That kind of complaint drives people apart. And so I am always trying to help people, especially when they're founding businesses, to just have that very honest conversation. And it doesn't mean that you couldn't start a business, but what it does mean is that there might be different roles for different people or systems and processes that you put in place to ensure that the different ways of people dealing with money have a way to come together in a good way.
Okay. So, like, what do you think? If someone have some kind of belief, like what kind of belief there should be that we should avoid working with them?
Well, I mean, like we've all got these connections with money, and I'm not sure that's necessarily like a do or die kind of thing. I think the more important thing is to have self awareness. So if the task is, "Oh, I want to go into business with you, Atul," then I want to say to you, tell me a bit about what money was like for you as a kid. Like, tell me your story. What is your relationship with money? And you might tell me, well, my mom was the person that ran all of the bills in the house, and my dad went out and, he did this and, or whatever the story is, right? And then I might say, tell me how you deal with money in your own life, or how have you dealt with money in business in the past? And some people are going to say, oh, I'm just not that great at math. Like, I just like, I don't, I like selling. but I don't like, you know, invoicing, or I always have somebody that takes care of it, or um, I obsess over what's in the bank. I love budgets. I'm very, very, risk averse. Like just your personal connection to money and risk and how money flows will come out in that very open story. It's a way easier conversation to have before you start the business
Mhm,
than it is a year and a half in when shit has all gone wrong. So if you can do it at the start, then you can build some processes. So a good conversation, if you confessed a bunch of things to me and then I confessed a bunch of things to you, we could say,
mhm,
oh, so it sounds like you're like this and I'm like this. What are the things that we're going to do so we work well together? How do we
mhm.
stay in harmony with what the ingredients in our money pie is? And that could be, I'll take care of this part, you take care of that part. Let's meet every 2 weeks. Let's share the things. Let's make sure that we, are very, very transparent and clear around how we're dividing up what we're doing. All of those kinds of things can sort of support people's strengths and fill in where their maybe weaknesses are, and allow a company to build and work on people's, good faith and also their personal like skills and abilities.
Okay, for our listeners who want to know more about you and want to connect with you, where can they go?
Yeah, so my company is called clearlythen.com. You can reach out. I'm on LinkedIn and I have lots of downloadable podcasts. One of the things that folks like to do is I have recorded some real sessions that I do with leaders. I have six, it's like a private podcast, and there's 6 recorded sessions with real leaders. I've anonymized them, but you can hear me do my work in real time with real leaders, and you can hear them work through their issues and their problems. And that can be really helpful if you're thinking about working with me, to hear how I've helped other people. So there's a couple of places to get in touch. Please reach out. I'm a real human. I respond to DMs.
Wow. Okay, so is there anything else that you would like to share?
Just that appreciate you having me on. I know business and leadership can be stressful for a lot of folks. So if that's you, feel free to reach out.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It was really fun chatting with you.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Atul. Appreciate it.